Manuel was born in Alcochete on May 31st, 1469, the youngest son of Infante Ferdinand, brother of King Afonso V, and Beatriz. Described as a kind and pleasant man, he was even nicknamed the Fortunate by the historian Damião de Gois. On October 27, 1495, after John II died in Alvor, Manuel was proclaimed king in Alcácer do Sal, where he was at the time. He was not the natural heir, but John II had named him in his will, and the court swiftly acknowledged him as sovereign, helped, no doubt, by the urgency of succession during a time of plague. By receiving the crown through the will and the acknowledgement of the nobles, Manuel secured his position as king with unquestioned legitimacy. From the beginning, he did not abandon the great project of John II, reaching India by sea. In December 1496 at Montemoro Novo, the council debated how to achieve this goal. Some argued it would be better to focus on consolidating and defending the kingdom, while others maintained that discovery and maritime expansion were essential. Manuel agreed with the second view, deciding that to achieve power and preserve independence, Portugal had to extend itself beyond its borders. In 1497, on July 2nd, a fleet of 2 ships and a supply caravel departed from Lisbon, commanded by Vasco da Gama, the son of Estevão da Gama, recently deceased, whom John II had originally intended for the mission. Their destination was Calicut, which they would reach in May 1498. The voyage's aim was reconnaissance, testing sea routes, navigation conditions, hiring pilots, detecting allies and enemies, and establishing commercial ties. Some expectations, however, were not fulfilled. The strong trade connections hoped for in Lisbon did not materialize. But considering the coast of India could not be confused with that of West Africa, success was undeniable. The obstacles Vasco da Gama faced, poor navigation skills, lack of resources, and difficulties in diplomacy, were too great to immediately forge the alliance the Portuguese hoped for. Nevertheless, the voyage ensured the supply of spices like pepper and confirmed that direct contact with India by sea was possible. In Lisbon, people still imagined there were powerful Christian kingdoms in Asia, descendants of ancient Nestorian converts, with whom alliances might be formed. On the one hand, the Portuguese counted on the Christians of St. Thomas in India, who were imagined as allies capable of immediately securing trade in spices. On the other, they believed the rulers of Egypt and the Turkish sultans of the eastern Mediterranean would try to block access to the Orient, as they were Muslim powers opposed to Christianity. Even if these allies in India turned out to be less influential than expected, King Manuel insisted on pressing forward with the project. They aimed to establish a stable commercial system. King Manuel sought alliances with Christians overseas, although he also relied on Hindu princes willing to cooperate with the Portuguese against the Muslims. The Portuguese quickly realized, however, that maintaining such alliances with local rulers was not always possible. Despite this, they managed to secure important positions along the Indian Ocean coastline, establishing strongholds in places such as Sofala, Mozambique, Kilwa, Mombasa, Malindi, Ormuz, Goa, Cochin, Cananore, and Kulão. These positions, either acquired through conquest or negotiation, formed the backbone of Portuguese control over eastern trade routes. When Afonso de Albuquerque took power, he implemented a bold strategic vision that transformed Portuguese presence in Asia into a true empire, based on both military strength and naval supremacy. Under his leadership, Portugal gained control over crucial maritime choke points and consolidated positions in the Indian Ocean, thereby ensuring dominance over east-west trade. With these conquests and new sources of revenue, Manuel's government began to operate in a more structured way. He centralized administration to better manage the expansion overseas, building upon the foundations laid during the reign of João II. Internally, Manuel presented himself as a deeply religious king, but his piety also had political undertones. His reign coincided with a period of significant changes in the Portuguese court, where advisors and royal officials consolidated their influence. Among them, Duarte Galvão, Antonio Carneiro, and Fernão de Pina played important roles, providing expertise in governance and diplomacy. One of the most notable changes during this reign was the effort to standardize the kingdom's finances and justice system. Initiatives were taken to better organize taxation and administration, particularly in light of the influx of wealth from Asia. The monarchy used this wealth to strengthen its authority, presenting Manuel not only as a devout king, but also as a powerful and effective ruler. In foreign policy, King Manuel largely maintained the lines of action established under João II: vigilance along the Castilian border, rivalry with France, and attempts to balance power with England. At the same time, he pursued dominance in North Africa. In Asia, the construction of the Estado da Índia, Portuguese state of India, brought new political and military realities. While initially based on trading posts, Portugal's overseas empire increasingly turned toward territorial control. This shift was driven by both the ambitions of commanders such as Afonso de Albuquerque and by the need to secure trade routes against rivals. The monarchy worked to reinforce its authority through careful diplomacy as well. Manuel sought papal approval and prestige, presenting himself as a Christian monarch, defending the faith overseas. He also cultivated ties with Rome to legitimize his conquests, sending embassies and even exotic gifts such as animals from Asia and Africa. The arrival of an elephant in Rome in 1514 became particularly famous as a symbol of Portuguese global reach. By the end of his reign, King Manuel had transformed Portugal into a global empire. His policies connected Lisbon with trade and politics stretching from the Atlantic to the Indian Ocean. His reign marked the consolidation of a centralized and powerful monarchy, backed by the immense wealth of overseas commerce. Two main concerns guided King Manuel's foreign policy. The first was dynastic. Through marriage alliances, he sought to link Portugal with the great royal houses of Europe. The second was global. He aimed to consolidate and expand Portugal's overseas empire, especially in the Indian Ocean. His dynastic strategy was ambitious. By marrying into the Castilian royal family, Manuel tied himself to the powerful Catholic monarchs, Ferdinand and Isabella, and later to their successors. These marriages gave Portugal a stronger position in Iberian politics. At the same time, Manuel projected Portugal onto the global stage through maritime expansion. He envisioned the kingdom as a universal Christian empire, both politically and religiously, with Lisbon at its center. The overseas conquests and trade provided him with the wealth to sustain this vision and enhanced his prestige in Europe. Militarily, Portugal expanded its control in the Indian Ocean and strengthened key positions in Africa and Asia. Places like Goa, Malacca, and Ormuz became vital hubs in a network of strongholds that allowed the Portuguese to dominate maritime trade routes. Manuel also encouraged voyages of exploration further east, reaching the Moluccas, Spice Islands, and pushing into the Pacific. This expansion came with difficulties: resistance from local powers, challenges in maintaining distant outposts, and competition with other European nations, especially Spain, forced the Portuguese to invest heavily in fortifications and fleets. The maintenance of this overseas empire demanded constant resources and strong leadership. Despite these challenges, Manuel's reign represented the peak of Portuguese overseas ambition. Lisbon became a true center of global commerce, where goods from Africa, Asia, and soon the Americas arrived, transforming the city into one of Europe's most vibrant capitals. Portugal's expansion also reached the Atlantic. King Manuel supported expeditions to Brazil, consolidating the Portuguese claim to the territory following the Treaty of Tordesillas. The voyages of Pedro Álvares Cabral, as well as subsequent missions, established Brazil as part of the Portuguese sphere, though its development would come later. In Africa, Manuel's reign saw the strengthening of existing positions along the western and eastern coasts, particularly through fortified trading posts. These outposts not only provided military security, but also served as vital supply stations for fleets heading to and from India. The king's policies blended a universalist religious vision with pragmatic strategies of conquest and trade. He saw himself as a monarch chosen by God to defend Christianity across the world, which explains the emphasis he placed on missionary work in Africa and Asia. At the same time, he was careful to secure the economic basis of his empire, ensuring control over the spice trade and other valuable goods. Diplomatically, Manuel skillfully used Portugal's new wealth and power to enhance his standing among European rulers. Embassies sent to the papacy and other courts displayed the riches of the Orient and Africa, reinforcing Portugal's prestige. Exotic animals, precious stones, and spices dazzled foreign rulers, underlining the idea of Portugal as a rising global power. By the time of his death, Portugal under Manuel had become the leading maritime empire of Europe.